And we're live. Hey, guys, welcome back to Expanding the Conversation with Richard, Kofi, and this morning Lisa Mohammed, the indomitable Lisa Mohammed. No, it's really good to be on again early in the morning. Remember, we're doing the 6 o'clock every morning, so on Tuesday mornings. So really good to have you guys here. Today, like we posted last night, we want to talk a little bit about how we use life experiences to overcome the fear of getting out of our comfort zone. And I think this is an important topic on a set of questions because I think in life we do tend to get very comfortable in certain situations, and we want to talk about how do you overcome, the fear and the anxiety that sometimes comes with leaving a place that's extremely comfortable, whether it's a relationship or a geography or a set of circumstances in one's life. There sometimes is a lot of anxiety when you think that I may end up having to move on with my life and not have certain people in them, regardless of what circumstances might drive those kinds of separation. There's some people who do have fear of separation as well, and they feel like they have to cling and hold on to certain relationships or certain things in their lives because they are fearful that if those circumstances change, if that comfort level changes, then you're not kind of sure what to expect. And sometimes I think all of us have found ourselves in those places from one time to
Yep.
another, either following people or being part of an organization or being part of a group. And it becomes an important point where you have to decide, should I move on? Or life is moving you to a different place and you're sort of really concerned about how am I going to make it if I don't have these people in my life? How am I going to make it if I don't have these organizations in my life? How am I going to make it if I don't have certain things going on? And yeah, it can be a big source of anxiety for a lot of people. So we want to talk a little bit about that. And Lisa is going to help us think through this and have a great conversation this morning. So good morning and welcome, Lisa.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me. I know this has been a very this invitation has been extended for a very long time. I'm happy that I'm honoring it today. Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, this is
Welcome.
interesting conversation. I think we have to do a lot of personal work on ourselves. Um, Sometimes this is something that I've been asking myself lately, something that I've been thinking about. How do we navigate life when the people we start with is not on the journey with us? And life is a journey, as we know,
Right.
and not everybody that starts with us is going to finish with us. And some people may have to divert to another path. Our path may be ahead of us. What do we do then when they have to divert? Some people may pass out. And are we going to divert with them to their path? That's not ours. Are we going to pass out? Are we going to stay stagnant and stuck on the journey? Or are we going to continue to go on? And, that is something that I've thought about. I think we have to do a lot of personal work on ourselves. We have to be able to build resilience and learn how to accept rejection because people are not going to be with us all the time. And that's okay. It's okay. I know sometimes when you're like, okay, I've got to move on with my life. This person is no longer in my life. What do I do? I've got to move on. And you don't really what we call quote unquote grieve a lot. People think you're selfish. You're not
Hmm.
sympathetic. And oh, you didn't like that person anyways. You're happy that they're gone. But no, we've got to do work. We have got to do the work for ourselves, and we have got to be able to deal with our emotions and learn how to deal with rejection. Because if we depend on people in our lives or to be there all the time, it's just not going to happen. The
Yeah.
amount of people we started, we're not going to finish with them. We may pick up some on our way down, but I'm very positive that some are going to drop off.
True.
Yeah.
What do you think, Rich?
Oh, good morning, everybody. Lisa, thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having
No,
me.
it's so many things here, right? There's your comfort zone, there's the familiar, there's the unfamiliar, and then there's the fear around the unfamiliar, right? A lot of
Hmm.
different pieces. Um, and I'll give you guys a little story. When I went to high school and then I left. Well, there are a couple of times I did this actually. Now that I'm reflecting on it, I, we go to school and we go to second form, and then in third form we stream off and we choose where we're gonna go. So I did well enough in math and science. I said I'm gonna go to science stream. I feel like I want to be a pilot. That was my dream, right? I go up to the science stream class and none of my friends aren't there. I was like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to
Uncomfortable
business.
then.
I'm going to business. So I went to one of my teachers who was very upset with me, but nice enough to say, okay, we'll move you. And then I finished high school. I was like, what am I gonna do? So I was like, all my friends are going to university. I gotta go to university, right? And so I went to university, and then I got some guidance from a family friend to not go that path, and I went somewhere else. And so I went somewhere else where I was the only person there, right? So I was in the unfamiliar. I was, and I use unfamiliar because I'm learning that the things that we're fearful of aren't things that are necessarily scary things. They're just unfamiliar, right? And because we're not
Hmm.
familiar with them, we tend to assign fear to
Right.
them. And so I went a different path. And you're right, Lisa. I think everybody's not going to go on the same journey there. We're not all on the same path. We don't all have the same sense of self-belief, and we'll get there at different times, right? It's not to say that anybody's journey it's not to say that somebody's lesser or somebody's better than the other person. I think we've just got to pursue our path, right, as you said.
Hmm.
And our dreams, right? Like don't give up on your dreams, pursue your dreams, but understand that there's a price, right? There's always a price that we have to pay. And sometimes I think there's this idea that we're gonna have it all. We get excited about being able to have, and I was like, I want to take everybody with me, right? And I know we saw that even with like superstar celebrities, right, that would get incredibly rich, and they'd want to take all their homeboys with them, but then they spend all their money and they'd be broke, right? Once
Yeah.
they're done making money. And so I think, like everything else in life, at some point we gotta be grown-ups, right? We gotta decide where we're heading and what is it for. And I know we've talked before about, like, having your goals and knowing why you're pursuing your goals. And if your whys are big enough, then sometimes you're going to lose people. And then sometimes you're going to have other people. I mean, like for Kofi and I, for example, I think some of it was sort of natural, right? Because once you move out of a physical geography, like you're just in
Yeah.
unfamiliar territory to begin with. So you got to cope, right? You go into a neighborhood and you don't know anybody in the neighborhood. You got to cope. You got to figure out ways to make new friends. And so you're thrusted into this new environment. So it's sink or swim, right? And obviously you got to swim. But in other cases, it's a little bit harder, right? Because for some people in certain geographies, you're around the same people, you're in the same place, you see them every day. And so it's harder to say, well, I
Yeah.
really don't have time to come drink a beer with you today. It was like, no, but you're passing down the road. You can always stop and drink a beer, right? And a beer turns into 2 beer or 3 beers. And I use that as an example.
Hmm.
I'm not bashing beer drinkers. I drink beers myself. But I think that's what happens. But I agree with you 100%. Like some people are just not going to go on the journey. The one thing I'll say
Yeah.
though
Yeah.
before I shut up and give somebody else a chance is sometimes like we can go on our journeys, do a bunch of different things, and then reconnect afterwards, right? Even
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
when somebody might come back and say, like, man, like you have no idea. I saw you blazing trails and I was here doing nothing. And it took me a while to realize, well, Lisa and I went to school together. If she could do it, I could do it, right? And they might come back to you 10 years down the line and be like, like I want to work with you, like teach me, right there. Let's do something
Yeah.
together. And that can happen too. Kofi and
Yeah.
I, for
That's
example, right? We weren't like side by side after we left school, and we reconnected 2000 what
a long
12
time ago.
some.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then we kind of started talking a
Yeah.
little bit more. So it's not to say that you lose your friends, but I think there's an opportunity to make new friends as we
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
forge our
Yeah.
paths.
I've
Yeah.
had just recently I had to move from one place to another, and it was the most uncomfortable thing ever. I was very sad and uncomfortable, and I did not know how I would navigate because I was 25 years old, and for 25 years I'm living in this place. How do I navigate out of it? I have no idea. I can tell you, it was the best decision I've ever made. It was the best. Met some amazing people. I've been doing some great stuff. So it's great. Sometimes when
Yeah.
it seems like it's going to be uncomfortable, we've got to come out of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
The great
Yeah.
stuff is on the other side.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
it's sort of interesting because I think we all come from a culture where sort of leaving things is often like it has its timing, like specific timing, right? So if you're like,
Mhm.
especially if you're like a young lady like Lisa, right? Like the only time you could leave your home is like when you're married. Like
You're
a man's
married.
gotta come and take you out of your mother's house. You know what I mean? So if you just leave for any other reason, like then there's an issue. Unless you're going away to study, you're leaving the country
Mhm.
or something. But when people see you change up sort of sort of the expected path of your life, they get really concerned and they tend to put that pressure on you that you should make that change. Or maybe you're going to you're part of an institution or a group of some sort, and they're like, you're just gonna leave. Like, yeah, I feel like the
Mhm.
path's changing, and you've got to give me that space to grow. And that's one of the things I really wanted to talk about. Actually, I think when we escape that comfort zone and we give ourselves a space to grow, we get to take on experiences, right, that enriches our lives and the lives of other people. And Rich, you alluded to that as well. That by going off on your own path and learning, right, and charting your own course, when you sort of reconnect with people, right, you've got this wealth of experience to now share, right? That begins to enhance other people's lives. Become sort of this pioneer who's able to go back to even people who might be younger than you, or people who just haven't taken a path. Forget age. People just haven't taken the same path you have taken, and say to them, this is how you do it. This is how you go out and you succeed, and how you follow your dreams. And I think that's really important because one of the things that it does, it creates what I call these models for success. So when you go out and you fail at something, right, and then you learn from the experience and you learn to make corrections, you begin to develop in sort of psychologically how to succeed at certain things. So when you see those things coming again and you find yourself in a comfort zone or you feel like you've lost everything, right, you've hit rock bottom, you've been at rock bottom and you know exactly how to rise out of rock bottom, right? And so you know the steps, right? You know what you have to do. You know how to get out of there. You know the steps you took in the past, right, to sort of overcome that. You've seen the struggles before. You recognize them, and you know exactly what steps to take to be able to bring yourself back to a place, where you're back in a position that you want to be. And I think when we rob ourselves of those experiences, then the fear sort of builds up because, like you said, everything becomes unfamiliar. But when
Mhm.
you've got the experience and you go into a different territory, you're like, nah, I recognize this. I recognize what's
Yep.
going on here. I know what I'm supposed to do because you've learned those experiences by allowing yourself to have the experience. As I said, if you've never lived by yourself, I lived by myself when I was 18, and I always remember that experience because I had to learn what it was to cook my own food, just put food on the table, budget, my own money, and do all of this stuff. And sometimes when you're not living by yourself and you've got people helping you to do those things, you don't think about it. And then you find yourself living alone. And you're worried about how am I going to make it? What am I going to do? But when you give yourself that experience and that comes again at some other point in life, like, no, I did this. I did this back in 2018. I did this back in 2015. Like you said, Lisa, you've moved before. You sort of know the steps. So the next time you have to
Mhm.
move or something like that comes up, you've already got a model in your head as to how you're going to improve because you've done this before. And I think that sort of experience under our belt gives us the confidence we need to sort of move out of future comfort zones that we
Yep.
find ourselves in. Yeah.
Yeah, it builds confidence and independence.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things too that I touched on a little bit, this idea of that you mentioned, Lisa, that not everybody's going to come with us. Um, I, I think the important thing there to note is that there are a lot of there's a lot of people in the world, but there are a lot of friends, right? New people to meet, that will cheer you on the journey, that will give you good guidance. I mean, I remember even my time. Um, here in the US, and the amount of people that I've met along the way that have contributed
Yeah.
to my journey, that have sort of stuck their neck out for me, right? Given me an opportunity to do something. And it's important, I think, for all of us to understand that, like, yeah, you've got all your friends or the people that you've always been around, but know that there are a ton of friends out there, right?
Yep.
Recently,
Hmm.
last weekend, like running, for example, you talked about, finding new things, right, Kofi? Running is one of those things that I discovered
Hmm.
being away from home, right? Even though when I go home and I run on the road, I'm probably the only person running, right? Because I'm running in regular neighborhoods and people are wondering what's wrong with me.
Yeah, who's
Um,
chasing this guy?
right. Yeah, right. Or is a dog gonna come running behind me at some point? Um, but I found my love for running, and the amount of people even in Guyana or in other places that have said, man, I saw you running, and I was inspired by it. And I didn't set out to inspire anybody with my running. My speed certainly isn't inspirational by any means. But I think, to your point, right, when you go out and you do things, you discover new things, and then you have the ability to share that with other people, even whilst you're enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
But like I ran a race this weekend with friends that I met here. Somebody that I started, when in my early running years. I was like, yeah, I think I should try to beat you at some point, because you're ahead of me, but you're close. I feel like we should start running. And so you develop friends along the way, people that have volunteered to coach me to run faster and that kind of thing. And so there's a whole world out there beyond your comfort zone. It's not
Yep.
scary, it's just unfamiliar. And so I think it's important to know
Hmm.
that the world is filled with kind people. I know a lot of times there's this sort of the battle against the good and the bad, right? And you got to look out for people that are trying to harm you. um Maybe this is my view as an optimist, but there's a lot of people that really want to cheer you on and be part of your journey as you were part of theirs, right? They're not necessarily doing it just out of pure selflessness. People will enjoy your company and therefore tag on. So as you step out and you feel like you're leaving some friends behind, also take comfort in knowing that there's a lot of friends ahead waiting
Ahead
for
of
you
you.
as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. The journey is ours. So we've got to, you know, we have got to work, um, run our race, walk the path, and just do the work. It's ours.
Yeah. I see Rhonda's got a good comment. She says, I think one of the questions we should ask ourselves when faced with stepping out of our comfort zone is what can I learn from this? And maybe that's a good way to sort of face a comfort zone sort of escape, like, all right, what am I going to learn from this? What are the pros, right? And just sort of maintaining sort of a positive mentality, like you said, Richard, like this is going to be great, right? This is going to be, sometimes you don't even know what you're going to learn, right? So you just got to be like
Hmm.
confident that these things are going, they're sort of set up to help you succeed, right? And that if you remain in your comfort zone, you're not going to grow, right? It's not a place of growth. And it's always a place you can go back to. I always tell people it's always a place you can go back to because it's familiar territory. If you don't like where you're going, just stop, just go back. Even though sometimes that's harder to do because once you move out, you don't want to go back anyway, right? So,
Yep.
um, yeah, I think there's quite a bit to
Oh
learn.
yes.
Thanks for the comment, Ron. So, closing,
Yeah.
guys, what do you guys think? How do we what do we want to tell people here about what have we learned from escaping our own comfort zone? That we want to leave with folks as we go.
I think we have to work on ourselves. We have to learn to deal with rejection. We have to learn to be emotionally and mentally strong and understand that not everybody's going to be there, and try not to be so attached to someone that if they leave, your life is going to be so devastated. And if that's the case, like you've got to re-examine your life, because if that's where you are now, then you've got a lot of work to do. Because people are going to leave. You will have to move from one place to another. You will have to come out of your comfort zone at some point. So you can start building those muscles now. So when that happens, you're strong.
Excellent, excellent, Rich.
Good stuff. Yeah, I think to run this point, I'll say in closing is asking yourself questions, right? I mean, lots of questions, and answer those questions, right? Back in the day, they used to say that it's okay if you talk to yourself, just don't answer back. I'm saying no, you need to answer
I,
back,
I
right?
heard that.
You
Yeah.
got you got to complete the loop, and I say that jokingly, but I've really learned the power of writing stuff down and examining and assessing life and
Yeah.
knowing, what am I in it for, right? I know last time we talked about struggles, and struggles are great, but struggling for no reason, not a good
Yeah.
idea, right?
Yeah.
What is it connected to? And I
Yeah.
think with everything else, right? When you're forging a path, or as they say, if you want something that you've never had, you've got to do something you've never done. And so, with that
Yeah.
Hmm.
idea, and knowing that, like, everybody, I think, aspires to be something, right? Like, I don't think, and I've said this many times, I don't think anybody wakes up and be like, I just want to be mediocre today, right? I think for the most part, we all want to be something.
Yeah.
Most of us don't know what that is, but I think to run this point, write it down, ask yourself the question, and know why. Because if you know why and it's
Hmm.
convincing enough, then sometimes it's worth the pain and the unfamiliarity of a
Yeah.
new thing.
Yeah. I would say closing, it's, living is growing, growing is living. The ability to grow is one of the characteristics of living things. So, and growing sometimes you feel it. There's the comment, there's the statement, growing pains, right? Because as you grow and as you change, even as you see like trees, for example, as they grow, they have to bend around things and move, in certain places, and sometimes that does feel uncomfortable. So I think part of growing is living, and part of feeling uncomfortable is part of growing. So it's okay to be uncomfortable, right? It's okay to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because it means that you're growing and you're developing and you're learning, and you'll be able to assess that. And I think that's one of the things we're able to look back over our lives and see that in our most uncomfortable situations is when we oftentimes we're learning the most,
Yeah.
about life. And so we shouldn't be afraid to just step out of our comfort zone and embrace new things, embrace new experiences, embrace new places to go, because it means that we're living. That's what life is all about. So,
Absolutely.
all right,
Yeah.
good.
Good stuff.
Well,
Thanks. Thanks,
Lisa,
Lisa,
thanks for
for being
joining
with
us and
us.
making this
Thanks for
exactly,
having me,
Yeah. Yeah.
guys.
making this so exciting, man. That's good.
Make, making this a little bit more gender inclusive. Thank you. Because
Uh-oh.
those
I'm
things are
happy to help.
important. All right, guys. Have a
Awesome. You
great
guys
day,
take care.
everybody.
All right, guys.
All
Take
right,
care.
bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. And broadcast is ending.